There is something most men completely overlook, and yet it carries far more weight than they ever realize. What makes it even more fascinating is that women quietly notice it too, even if they almost never bring it up directly. So here is something worth sitting with for a moment. You have probably come across men who appear to have everything going for them: physically attractive, self-assured, perhaps even financially successful, with real social presence. And yet somehow, despite all of that, they still cannot seem to build anything truly deep or meaningful with a woman. Something remains just out of reach, and they cannot pinpoint why. The reality is that attraction does not live only in appearance, income, or status. What most men fail to see are the quiet, subtle behaviors that leave a genuine mark. These are not dramatic gestures or obvious power moves. They are understated, almost invisible actions that nonetheless shape everything about how a woman actually feels when she is around you. What follows are some of those unspoken desires that women carry but rarely put into words. These are not the recycled dating tips that float around everywhere. They are grounded in psychology and in patterns of human behavior that have held true across time. When you actually understand them, they have the power to shift how women experience you entirely. Picture this for a moment. What if you could reach a woman on a level that even she struggles to articulate? What if you could naturally stand apart without chasing, without over-explaining yourself, and without performing just to prove your value, simply by knowing how to make her feel genuinely safe, seen, and emotionally understood? That alone would already put you in a completely different category from most men she encounters. Here is what is uncomfortable but true. If these deeper principles remain invisible to you, you are already behind. You risk watching attraction fade before it ever had the chance to grow into something real. You risk leaving no impression at all when you could have been someone she kept thinking about long after the moment passed. That is exactly why this understanding matters. And once it genuinely lands for you, particularly the final point, the way you think about attraction and connection will be permanently altered. If this kind of insight speaks to something you want to build in your own life, consider passing it along to someone who could use it or sharing your own experience in the comments. That kind of engagement keeps these conversations alive and going deeper. Now into the first idea, and it is one that most men dramatically underestimate. It is the quiet power of touch before any intimacy develops. Think about a date that seems to be going well on the surface. The setting feels right, the conversation flows easily, there is genuine laughter, and both people appear to be present. And yet something underneath it all is slightly closed off. She is engaged, yes, but not fully open. The evening ends, you reach out afterward, and then silence stretches out with no reply. This is the exact moment where so many men unknowingly lose the thread. Most of them have been operating under the assumption that attraction is built primarily through words. They invest in being entertaining, telling compelling stories, trying to land the right impression through what they say, but women do not connect primarily through conversation alone. Connection happens through emotion, through the quality of energy in the room, and above all, through how she physically and emotionally feels when she is near you. One of the most underutilized ways to cultivate that feeling is through calm, deliberate touch. Not something hurried or tinged with need, and certainly not anything that feels calculated or performed. It has to arise naturally, carry genuine respect, and feel completely effortless. Even a small gesture, when it comes from real intention, can alter the entire emotional current between two people. A composed hand on her shoulder, a relaxed and unhurried embrace, a gentle, reassuring moment at the right time, these say things that words simply cannot reach. For a great many women, feeling emotionally safe carries more significance than physical attraction on its own. Touch that carries no sexual agenda sends something wordlessly but unmistakably. It communicates that you respect where she is. It gives her permission to stop bracing herself and simply be at ease. And it is that ease, that sense of being comfortable rather than evaluated, that allows real closeness to develop organically. This is not about executing technique or rehearsing behavior. It is about being fully present, slowing your pace, and genuinely noticing how she responds to you. When you build an environment where she feels valued rather than pressured, everything that follows happens naturally. Men who genuinely distinguish themselves do not push or try to engineer these moments. They allow things to arrive in their own time. They remain grounded, unhurried, and attuned to what is happening around them. They understand that authentic connection expands in a space defined by ease rather than effort. When you move through an interaction with that quality of calm intention, you naturally become someone she feels drawn toward without either of you having to force a single thing. What gives this even more depth is that it functions beneath the level of conscious thought. When a woman genuinely feels safe and emotionally settled in your presence, her defenses lower on their own without you needing to persuade her of anything. That feeling is not produced by sweeping, romantic gestures. It is built through consistency and through small actions that carry real respect. The way you hold yourself, the quality of your listening, the way you respond to her energy, all of it contributes. Touch, when it feels completely natural, deepens that emotional safety. It expresses confidence without any edge of aggression, and interest without a trace of pressure. What it ultimately requires is awareness. You have to actually notice her responses, whether she moves closer, visibly relaxes, or quietly pulls back. Reading and honoring those signals is what distinguishes a man who genuinely understands human connection from one who is simply going through motions trying to impress. Patience is another force at work here that most men undervalue. Many rush, convinced that they are about to lose the moment if they hesitate. But genuine attraction builds precisely when there is no rush present. When you decelerate and stay fully in the moment, you create room for something real to take shape. That is what makes the connection feel authentic, memorable, and unlike what she usually encounters. There is one more layer worth naming. A lot of men are focused entirely on what they are doing, but real closeness comes from being tuned in to what she is experiencing. When you are genuinely present, you catch the small shifts in her mood, her posture, and the subtle changes in her energy. That attunement lets you respond fluidly rather than guessing or pushing. It makes your presence feel settled and grounded, which is something women come across surprisingly rarely. Restraint also carries its own quiet power. Not reacting on impulse, not rushing toward physical closeness, not trying to accelerate things before they are ready. All of this creates an impression of composure and genuine self-possession. When your movements are measured and intentional, they feel far more real. They signal that you are not operating from desperation, but from clarity and inner steadiness. And over time, those small, consistent moments accumulate into trust. Trust deepens into comfort. And comfort is the door through which real attraction walks. When a woman feels she can truly relax in your presence without bracing for pressure, she begins to connect your company with a feeling of emotional ease. That association stays with her. It lingers after you have parted, and it makes the memory of being around you carry a weight that no amount of clever words could ever produce on their own.